I'm a dad too, and I want to be a good father. I want to be a good person to people, and I don't like hurting kids. Really, it's just I resorted to being something stupid, and I'm trying to be different.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of, I think, every parent's worst nightmare. And this is coming from a father of three with a 9-year-old son, myself. Now, to add insult to injury, after this roach tried to kidnap their son walking home from school, a judge sentenced him to probation. No prison time at all. The only reason that we are here is because he violated that probation. We are going to hear from mom and dad in this parole hearing, and I'll unpack it with all the details, including the judge's statement when she handed down the probation at the end.
So it looks like an original hearing happened in October of 2022, where a rehearing was ordered for November 2024 with psychological review. It was noted that you were expected to complete residential substance use treatment as evaluated to be appropriate and have no disciplinary actions. Do you have any comments about your offenses?
Um, Not at all. I know I did wrong. You know what I mean? I don't know what to say to the family. This has been the hardest 3 years of my life, and I just I feel really bad about it, and hope to God I get a second chance of life, you know what I mean? Because I've heard about people getting the same charge and doing 10.5 years of life, and my health ain't good at all, you know what I mean? And I'm not scared of that. I'm a dad too, and I want to be a good father. I want to be a good person to people, and I don't like hurting kids, really, it's just I resorted to being something stupid, and I'm trying to be different. And I've had counseling this whole time since I've been down, and it's really helping me, and try to go to church too. Go ahead, man. I'm done talking.
Sir, I'm probably gonna ask you throughout the hearing, a couple of the comments that you just made, and so I want you to know that we might revisit some of those. But one of the things you said was that you did wrong and that you quote unquote did something stupid. Can you elaborate on what you think you did wrong and what you think was led to these actions?
Yeah, following the kid mainly, and
I'm sorry, sir, I can't hear you. What did you say?
following the kid, and just not being in the right mindset, thinking I want to hurt him. So
Why do you said you were not in the right mindset. What do you mean by that?
um, I was just impaired on drugs, so
What drugs are you taking?
methamphetamine.
So what do you think your risks are? You mentioned meth. What do you think your other risks are moving forward?
Um, I really don't think I'll have any. I want to move forward, and I don't want to have to bother their family, and I think I could be a changed man, and my dad's out here, and we're thinking about moving away, so once I get
Where's away?
to my uncle's house out in in Florida, Youngstown, Florida, and yeah.
Like I said, I might revisit some of those things, but I want to give time to the victims to testify, okay? Whoever would like to go first. Sir, I want to thank you for attending today's hearing and for taking the time to make a statement. Can you please state your name for the record?
Yeah, it's Brent.
And do you mind raising your right hand so I can swear you in? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Sir, once again, I appreciate you attending. Please make any statement you'd like to make.
On April 20th, 2021, Ethan Swisher attempted to abduct my son on his way home from school in broad daylight, of which numerous witnesses watched the encounter. Prior to this, Ethan Swisher repeatedly stalked my son and others over the course of 9 months in the area surrounding the school. Shortly before the incident, the community was made aware of Ethan Swisher's repeated presence near the school. Ethan Swisher was also told by South Ogden police officer to stop lurking in the area. Let me remind you of what the newspaper article stated in key points. The boy remains traumatized by the incident. Swisher had been following the victim, his brother, and other children. Parents in the area knew to keep the children away from Swisher. Swisher was high on methamphetamine that day and is being diagnosed with depression. The boy's parents have been very compassionate considering the circumstances. The goal was to keep the victim safe and keep Swisher safe from himself and his demons. I can tell you this, your actions don't sit well with me as a father. I'm here today speaking for my son, who is a real victim in all of this. My son will have to live with the trauma of the attempted abduction for the rest of his life. My son's trauma affects his everyday decisions, which continues to impact his thought process as he grows and becomes more independent. As his father, I continue to feel fear and anxiety when my son is participating in normal day independent things such as bike riding, walking around the neighborhood to the park, and going out with his friends. I will always wonder if my son is safe and if this incident can happen again. The fear will only be amplified if Ethan Swisher is released. Ethan Swisher has only spent 2 years in incarceration compared to the lifetime of trauma my son and our family will continue to recover from when Ethan Swisher attempted to abduct my son. Ethan Swisher has demonstrated he is a danger to society and himself. He hasn't had enough time to properly be rehabilitated and should remain incarcerated where he can continue to receive help and counseling to reflect upon his actions and gain the life skills needed to rejoin and be a functioning member in society.
Appreciate your comments today, sir. I've been making notes of all of them, though, so thank you for attending.
Thank you.
I think we have one more statement to be made. And I also want to thank you for attending today's hearing and taking the time to make a statement. Can you please state your name for the record?
Miss Jones,
All right, now, once again, I'm going to have to swear you in, so if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
And thank you again. Please make any statement that you would like to make today.
Okay. So I don't know what decision will be made after today, but I can tell you that the thought of Mr. Swisher moving back to my neighborhood scares me a lot. On April 20th, my ex-husband did a really good job explaining what happened that day, but one thing that I want to elaborate is there are 7 houses that separate Mr. Swisher's house and my house. 3 houses up from Mr. Swisher's house sits a park. And right behind that is an elementary school. The park had been open for 5 days before Mr. Swisher was bold enough to attempt to take my son in a park full of people. Families and kids were walking home from school. And we didn't know it at the time, but he had been following my kids to school and back as the park was being built, and that they had to walk the long way to school. And it had been almost the entire school year. When they noticed him following them, they would switch directions and he would continue to follow. From that day forward, I got to watch a smug Mr. Swisher play the court system, deny any wrongdoing, and never take accountability for it. I watched my 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old son be interrogated. I watched him sit through interviews. I watched him fall apart when his child forensics interview was rescheduled. To fight for justice was not an easy process, and I truly felt that the entire time that Mr. Swisher's rights held more weight and importance than my son's, myself, and our entire family. We were given some peace in November when we finally came to an agreement on a plea deal. His family was aware of the specifics of the plea deal and what was required, and they did nothing to help him. It wasn't even 3 weeks later, I don't think, before he was locked back up again. He wasn't on his medication, he had no living arrangements, and was back on drugs. So we got to continue to play his games in court. It was frustrating and completely emotionally exhausting every time, and he still denied any wrongdoing the entire time. It was only a few months after we received the prison sentence that he I received the letter saying that I had to fight again at his first parole hearing. That day will go down for me as one of the top 3 hardest days of my life. In that hearing, he admitted that I would have never seen my son again. Listening to his words and admitting I would never have seen him broke me. I finally felt validated for fighting so hard, but that was incredibly tough to hear. My kids have lost freedoms they once had because I no longer trust the world we live. They are not allowed to do some of the things we allowed our older kids to do. If I cannot reach one of them or for any reason, I completely shut down and go into panic mode. My family will never be the same. After all of this, I would like to say, would it be my preference he served his entire sentence and never got out? Yes. I think it would be a small price to pay for what he almost did to my son and how he changed me, my family, and my son forever? Yes. Do I acknowledge that there may be a possibility that he is granted parole? Yes. So I'm going to fight for 2 things today. 1, I think he deserves to stay in prison for as long as I can keep him in here. I've never felt more rage for an individual as I do him. 2, if he is granted a release, please do the right thing by my family and do not let him move back to our neighborhood. We do not want to see him on a daily basis, and I am terrified of what could actually happen the next time his family is not watching him and he doesn't take his medications and get back on drugs. 3 houses from a park is not far. 7 houses from my front door is not far. I would ask if you do grant him a release that you make sure that his family or him has secured the medication and therapy, a home, anything that can help protect other kids. I know I cannot plead for every kid in the world, but please help me protect my family.
Ma'am, do you mind if I ask you one question? So is the house still by you that he still resides in if he were released? Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony today.
I don't live in Ogden, by the way, anymore.
I'm sorry, sir.
I don't live in Ogden anymore.
So, and I don't, this is a live streamed hearing. I don't want you to tell me an address, sir. But do you have another home of another address you have?
My dad lives in Salt Lake, and I was just hoping to go to half my house out here, and that's where I was gonna try to live. So
Okay. All right, sir. I'm also gonna ask you for any other responses you have, sir. Like I said, please direct them towards me and not towards the victims, okay?
yes, ma'am.
Any other response that you would like to make to the victim testimony?
I just I I went through a lot of therapy, and I think that I'm ready to come out and on probation. And
What,
uh,
when you say you went through a lot of therapy, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
yeah, I have a counselor, and I meet with her every day, and I take my meds every day, and I just I don't hear voices anymore. That's what I used to do, is hear voices, and without my meds, I didn't hear. I mean, without my meds, I did hear voices, but I don't know.
So I know you contribute part of this offense to substance use,
Yeah.
but you're also talking about,
Well,
hearing-
no, it was mainly because of meth that messed me up, and then I got on I got diagnosed for schizophrenia.
and I want to get to the psychological review. Were you taking mental health medications during the offense?
No,
Were you prescribed them and you were not taking them, or were you not prescribed them?
I was not prescribed them.
Is that because you were not diagnosed until recently?
No, before that, I was doing counseling for it, but I just never got diagnosed for it. Yeah, so I never got diagnosed for it.
All right, sir. I do want to go over the psychological review because obviously that's an important part of this hearing. Do you remember meeting with Dr. Peck?
Yeah.
And what did you think of that report?
Um, it's true, and
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean it's true? Do you mean the diagnoses, the report, all of it, just anything in particular that stands out to you?
all of it.
Okay. All right, sir, and I'm gonna go over some specifics of it. I'm not doing this to be rude or in any way, but I need to get your insight, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So notice the medication that you were currently taking. Are
Yeah.
you still on that same medication? Do you remember the medications it talked about?
Yes, the same medications, but I'm not sure of the names because my brain's kind of,
That's, if you're on the same medications, I have a list of them. Do you plan on continuing them moving forward?
yes, ma'am.
Sir, one of the other things that talked about in the report was you hearing voices and what they were telling you to do during the offense. Do you remember talking about that?
Um, making myself hear voices.
Well, no, that when the offense occurred, you said you were hearing voices and that the voices were telling you what to do in regards to abducting this child, the victim. Do you
What it
remember
did-
talking about that?
Yeah,
Okay. Um, so do you see a risk moving forward is going off of your medications?
yeah. That's why I want to stay on them.
Okay. It also provided a diagnosis. Do you remember the diagnoses?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with that diagnosis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also provided some recommendations. I'm going to go over the recommendations to hear what you think, okay? It said, given the circumstances of the offense, consideration of some degree of restricting the individual from having contact with minors without adult supervision is may be warranted. So restricting you from any contact with children.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think of that?
That's fine.
Okay. It talked about possibly going through what's formerly called the MIO program. The mentally ill offender program is now called the MHSS program,
Yeah,
mental health support services. It's the halfway house. If you were released, what do you think of that?
yes, ma'am.
And just so you know, I don't know what the board will do. I'm a hearing officer. But if you are granted parole, you have to be considered for that program. A therapist will come out and assess you for that, okay? And they deal with mental health related issues.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, you talked about substances quite a bit at this hearing. Do you think you need substance use treatment?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think you need it in the prison or in the community?
I think
Or-
it'd be better in the community because my dad could help me. And like I said before, once I get on my feet without being stable at a housing facility, I'll be moving to a different state, so I don't have to be anywhere near their family.
How would you describe your mental health currently, sir?
It's great. It's just I'm just looking forward to getting out there and working, and making a change in my life and being better in the public.
All right, sir. I would note that I don't see any disciplinaries recently,
Yes, ma'am.
but I show some C notes that I find concerning, okay? And I want to give you a chance to address them if you have it, if you would like to.
Yes, ma'am.
I show that some disrespect towards medical staff, acting inappropriately to female staff. Can you tell me about those?
Yeah, the medical staff is, I just got mad one day because they were giving me the wrong meds and their side effects were pretty bad. So they put me on new meds and I was better, but
So when you said you just got mad, what does that mean to you? Did you want to hurt someone? Did you start
Just-
yelling at them? What
I
did you
just
do?
started yelling at them,
You started what?
yelling at them.
Do you think that was an appropriate response?
No, definitely not.
Okay. So do you think you have an anger issue?
No, I don't think I have an anger issue. I've always been happy with my family and everything like that, and I just, yeah, I don't have an anger issue.
Okay. What about the inappropriate actions toward female staff?
Um, I I have no reason to explain that. I mean, I was being disrespectful one night and I got mad at the lady that walks by during the night because she uh she she's she didn't answer me when I pushed the button, so kind of freaked out and and I just was disrespectful towards her.
Sir, I understand the offense for which you are pled, is not a sex offense, it's kidnapping, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But given some of the comments you've made and then also this disciplinary action, do you think you need sex offender treatment?
That's totally up to you guys. I wouldn't mind doing it if you guys want me to do it.
And I'm not saying what the board will do, right? Because once again, I'm a hearing officer,
Yes, ma'am.
but part of this hearing, you're expressing to me, and you've expressed it multiple times, which I appreciate, that you never want this to happen again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So part of this hearing is for me to understand what the board could order, what treatment you could do, so this doesn't happen again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I understand you're willing to do it, which is good. Do you think you need it though?
Yes, I do.
And I appreciate your insight, sir.
Yeah.
Once again, you've already kind of mentioned this, but you said you'd like to go to a halfway house and work in constructions. It sounds like if you were paroled that you would be open to that MHSS program. Is that right?
Yeah. I already have a, a carpenter degree, and I'm going back to doing carpentry with my dad. So
All right, sir. And I also received a letter of support. I reviewed that letter and it's part of the file.
yes, ma'am.
Sir, those are all my questions. From here, I'm a hearing officer. Laura, do you have sure, I'm gonna give him a chance to respond. Do you want to come up to are you making a statement for a victim? Oh. Oh,
Before you end, the family has requested that if you guys do grant him parole, that GPS monitoring is added to his parole agreement.
thank you. Do you have any comment about if you were paroled about GPS monitoring, sir?
I've heard about it, but no.
Would you be willing to do that if that were a condition of parole?
Yes.
All right, sir.
Okay.
I would make note of your guidelines, sir. It's 18 months or November 5th, 2022. Obviously, that's passed, right, sir?
Yeah.
But the board decides. The CCJJ, Commission on Criminal Justice and Juveniles, issue them. They're based on a number of factors, obviously one of them being your offense. But the board decides what happens moving forward, right?
Yes, ma'am.
They can go below that date, above that. Well, obviously they can't go below that date, but they can go above that date. The expiration of your sentence, meaning the longest time the board could have jurisdiction over you, assuming no other offenses, is May 5th, 2036. Do you have any closing comments or questions for myself or for the board?
No, that's it.
I'm sorry.
That's it.
Well, I appreciate you attending this hearing. I appreciate all the testimony today. I've made notes of all of it. We'll go ahead and conclude. Thank you, sir.
In that hearing, he admitted that I would have never seen my son again. Listening to his words and admitting I would never have seen him broke me. I finally felt validated for fighting so hard, but that was incredibly tough to hear. My kids have lost freedoms they once had because I no longer trust the world we live. They are not allowed to do some of the things we allowed our older kids to do. If I cannot reach one of them or for any reason, I completely shut down and go into panic mode. My family will never be the same. After all of this, I would like to say, would it be my preference he served his entire sentence and never got out? Yes. I think it would be a small price to pay for what he almost did to my son and how he changed me, my family, and my son forever? Yes. Do I acknowledge that there may be a possibility that he is granted parole? Yes. So I'm going to fight for two things today. One, I think he deserves to stay in prison for as long as I can keep him in here. I've never felt more rage for an individual as I do him. Two, if he is granted a release, please do the right thing by my family and do not let him move back to our neighborhood. We do not want to see him on a daily basis, and I am terrified of what could actually happen the next time his family is not watching him and he doesn't take his medications and get back on drugs. 3 houses from a park is not far. 7 houses from my front door is not far. I would ask if you do grant him a release that you make sure that his family or him.
Can you even imagine this monster, this roach? He stalks children The parents know about it. They're actually reporting it for months on end, but they can't do anything about it because they can't prove anything. Then finally, and I'll read the documents, but I just need to get some stuff off my chest first, but I'll read through the process for you. And finally, he actually does. He tries to kidnap the boy. And then this nut job judge gives him probation. Why? And then he violates his probation, and immediately after the sentencing, he comes up for parole. This is his second parole hearing. Remember, mom saying how it affected her, because they don't know what the board's going to decide to do. And I forgot in my moment of rage, they denied his parole, but he's coming back up for parole. He's coming back up for a rehearing in a year. So every year, this family has to go through this emotional, and like I said so clearly, the system cares more about their offenders, dangerous offenders of little ones, than they do about the victims. They don't care. And the board, you can see, I love this parole board interview, Kelly. She's my favorite of Utah so far. And she's trying to make it that he has to go to sex offender programs. And she even gets him to admit that, okay, I'll take it. Even though for some reason the judge didn't make it mandate that she should do it, and the DOC didn't make it, because why else would you kidnap a 10-year-old child, right? I mean, God, we're just sheeple. We don't understand those things. But he's not listed as that. He doesn't, but okay. The parole board does not make it mandatory for him to complete that program in order to get released. They just say that he has to attend the substance abuse program, and then he'll come up again for a parole hearing in a year. So there's a good chance that he will get paroled in a year. I'm just adding that bit of insanity. And we've seen this before with Utah Parole Board. Their programs for sex offenders are so high that we have seen people who have committed SA against their own children and not get recommended for it, because the DOC does not think that they're a good fit, does not think that they're high enough risk to get recommended for it. Make that make sense. So here it is. South Ogden man ordered into mental health court, and we'll hear from the judge in all of her brilliant wisdom, right? Can you imagine sentencing someone to probation after they do all of these things? They're clearly a danger. A judge on Monday sentenced a South Ogden man to suspended prison sentence for it says for kidnapping, but it was attempted kidnapping, a 10-year-old boy, and ordered him to move out of Weber County and report to the county mental health court. Second district judge admonished Ethan, not to violate the terms of her sentence, which grew out of a plea bargain between prosecutors and Swisher's attorney with input from the boy's parents. I like how they say that, with input. We all know that the prosecutor and the defense attorney wanted to come to this quickly. They don't want to go to court, and we know that they persuaded the family, to use a light word, to just accept this deal. If you screw this up, there was no one to blame but you, the judge told him. On April 20th, the boy's father called police to report that a man tried to get his son to go with him. The man told the boy his parents had asked to take him home, but the boy refused and ran away. And man, again, as a father of a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old, it's like when you think that, can we not just live in a time when we can have our children walk home from school? Is that not possible? Can we not live in that reality? Judge, can you not make it so that someone like this doesn't get probation? Because all of us who are just trying to live a nice and healthy life where our kids can walk home from school without us freaking out, you can't lock this cockroach up. It's insane. This is why we appreciate our judges that we see on YouTube, the ones that we love so much. Oh my God. So, but the boy refused and ran away from the man. A Birch Creek Elementary crossing guard saw the incident and identified Swisher. You know, great, good on that crossing guard. He should get a medal. Judge Boyd, Judge Stephen. Imagine if one of the, Judge Boyd or Stephen, they would not give him probation. Please. Defense attorney Ryan Bushwell said Davis County mental health court officials have agreed to take Swisher into their program, but the case must be transferred to the Farmington court first. Bushwell says Swisher will be accepted into a sober living program where he will help for the conditions including bipolar and schizophrenia and narcotics abuse. It's like, I'm sorry, I'll keep reading. Bushwell asked Snyder to sentence Swisher to release him for the Weber County Jail while the transfer is worked out. But prosecutor Patrick Tan of the Weber County office objected until we know for sure if he's been accepted into the mental health court. The boy remains traumatized by the incident, and the family fears Swisher will return to the neighborhood. Swisher lived with his parents just a few houses away from the school. Tan read to the court a statement from the boy's parents that said Swisher had been following the victim, his brother, and other children. Bushwell said parents in the area knew to keep children away from Swisher. He said Swisher was a high on he was all methed up that day and also has been since he has been in jail. Medications help greatly normalize his behavior. And we just saw him on his normalized behavior, ladies and gentlemen. This is him on his normalized behavior. And I want to point this out. He had write-ups while locked up on his normalized behavior, including what he did to that nurse that wouldn't treat him. That's him on DOC watch, on DOC medication, with everything to lose with this parole hearing coming up, and he has no control. You think this man is ever safe to be released into society? Why would a judge say 10 years probation? And if you mess up, you're going to get the sentence. Really? You're going to risk him messing up when it's children that he's after? Why is that okay for you to take that risk? It's insane. And there's something else a lot of people say. A lot of people who are on our channel are recovering. They have been messed up in their lives, or they've taken other things. But there's a famous line that we hear from them. Yeah, buddy. And that is, I may have done this, I may have done that, but I never tried to kidnap a child. It doesn't make you want to do that unless you're already something already. Maybe you want to do that. She never told Swisher the boy's parents had been very compassionate considering the circumstances. She also credited Swisher's parents for being determined to find a safe place, land, and get you the help you needed. In the plea bargain, Swisher pled guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree felony kidnapping and sentenced him to 1 to 15 years in a state prison and suspended the penalty, contingent upon him completing mental health court and complying with a 48-month probation. 48 months. She said her goal was to keep the victim safe and keep Swisher safe from himself and your demons. Wow, Judge, that makes a lot of sense, huh? Release him back into society so you can keep him safe. Okay. Oh, he has to go to a program. I see. One person, this is the judge, one person will make or break this case, and that's you. I will not hesitate to send you back to prison to make sure the victim and other children are safe. And you're talking at two sides of your mouth, Miss Judge, because if he lived 3 houses from your children or grandchildren, I dare not believe you make this deal. And what happened immediately after? He violated his probation. Judge Nader followed through Thursday on what she told the child kidnapping convict in September. One person will break this case, and that's you. Now, in September, Nader suspended Swisher's prison sentence for trying to kidnap the 10-year-old and gave him a chance of probation. Right? But Swisher was back before the judge, having been found in violation of his probation. Who would have thought? Who would have thought someone who's all methed up, who's trying to kidnap 10-year-olds, who's all over the place and would possibly violate his probation? We are only lucky that he didn't do it kidnapping a child. You've been led to the water you refuse to drink, the judge said, adding that she now had no choice but to impose the original penalty. In a plea bargain, Swisher last year pleaded guilty to reduced charges, second-degree felony, plus up to 5 years on being methed up. The judge said she would recommend to the Utah Board of Partisan Parole that Swisher be offered substance. And look at this, even the judge doesn't offer the sexual treatment. Look, what do you think he was trying to kidnap a 10-year-old boy for? Are you guys you're all nuts? Does he have to register? He is registered. Sir Richard has it here. He is registered. How can you be a registered offender and try to kidnap a 10-year-old, but not have to take programs for that? They're just so weird. But we're just sheeple. What do we understand, right? We don't have PhDs. We're not judges. We're not in the leadership of we're just simpletons. On April 20th, 2021, the boy's father called police. Okay, this is where they go through what we went through. Yeah. I wonder how someone like this makes it through prison. He just emanates, Sir Richard has it in the notes, he emanates weakness. Little crying, man, and he shows no empathy towards the victims. Nothing. There's nothing there. It's more than just being like a schizo and narcotics. He's already broken before that. There's nothing there. There's no empathy. And it made me sick when you hear him saying that he wants to be with his son. Dear God. He has a child? And then they put the family. And it's not the board interviewer, mind you, that's doing this. It's the parole board. She's just an interviewer. She makes a report. She gives it to a panel. I don't know this, but I believe every night or every whatever they get forms in their computer, and on those forms are check boxes. Victim opposition, yes. Write-ups, yes. Recommendation from parole interviewer. And then they click a box, and they probably spend 10 seconds on each form because we cover, I don't know how many, do we cover? We cover like 20 hours worth of parole hearings a day just from Utah. It's a lot. It's exhausting. And the parole board, they're just getting these forms in the computer and they're checking boxes. They don't care. There's no human element. There's no, wow, we saw this person in action. He's dangerous. Wow, the parents are suffering. Let's be careful. Wow, no, there's none of that. It's checks in a box with along they're looking at it. Wow, we only have this number of beds available in our prison, so we got to let some people out today. While we only have like 3 seats available for sex offender program. Now, you're not a high enough risk. He only tried to kidnap a 10-year-old. Not that I think the program makes a difference. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it makes a difference. But they think it makes a difference, and that's all that matters. All right, I'm done venting. Thank you, Richard. We'll cover the hearing again when he comes up in a year, and that's just sick. Again, it's sick that they do this, that this family, that's what they get notified when they look it up. They get notified, well, he's not released, but you're going to have to go through this again.
In that hearing, he admitted that I would have never seen my son again. Listening to his words and admitting I would never have seen him broke me. I finally felt validated for fighting so hard, but that was incredibly tough to hear. My kids have lost freedoms they once had because I no longer trust the world we live. They are not allowed to do some of the things we allowed our older kids to do. If I cannot reach one of them or for any reason, I completely shut down and go into panic mode. My family will never be the same. After all of this, I would like to say, would it be my preference he served his entire sentence and never got out? Yes. Do I think it would be a small price to pay for what he almost did to my son and how he changed me, my family, and my son forever? Yes. Do I acknowledge that there may be a possibility that he is granted parole? Yes. So I'm going to fight for 2 things today. 1, I think he deserves to stay in prison for as long as I can keep him in here. I've never felt more rage for an individual as I do him. 2, if he is granted a release, please do the right thing by my family and do not let him move back to our neighborhood. We do not want to see him on a daily basis, and I am terrified of what could actually happen the next time his family is not watching him and he doesn't take his medications and get back on drugs. 3 houses from a park is not far. 7 houses from my front door is not far. I would ask if you do grant him a release that you make sure that his family or him has secured the medication and therapy, a home, anything that can help protect other kids. I know I cannot plead for every kid in the world, but please help me protect my family.